day to one and all. Standing before you is Mr. Ngewana. Today, my colleagues and I will be analyzing Bloom's taxonomy. We will be looking at different aspects of Bloom's taxonomy as a whole. We will be looking at when was it established, who was it established by, when was it revised, and when did it start to experience the changes over the years. Now, standing before you is we have Miss Mukafani, we have Miss Mufute, we have Mr. Pagati, we have Mr. Mabaso, and lastly we have Mr. Spasani. And now our camera guy will be Mr. Due to unfortunate measures, as I was driving in the highway, we had to change the venue and come this side. As I was explaining in the previous video that I'll be explaining the first important point. And what is the first important point is understanding what is Bloom's taxonomy. Now, Bloom's taxonomy is a framework for classifying educational goals and objectives into complexity and specificity. It provides a structured way to understand educational goals. Now, there are three domains when it comes to the Bloom's taxonomy. The first domain is the cognitive domain, and it deals with what? With intellectual skills. And the second domain is the affective domain, and it deals with values, emotional growth. And the last domain is the psychomotor domain. As you know, that psychomotor means physical, anything that has to do with your body, the physical skills. Now, one of the most important domains is the cognitive domain. Now, it consists of 6 levels. Now, we have remembering, which means that recalling of facts. And then we have understanding, we have applying, we have analyzing, we have evaluating, we have creating. Now, another thing that you can do using this 6 levels is that, let's say maybe, for example, you have a lesson in class, and then you want to explain or you want to design a question paper. Now, how will you do this? Let's say, for example, you're in an English class or a math class. Now, you'll start your question paper very briefly. You test if the learners still remember what is it that they learned in the previous grade. You include definition, maybe let's say define a 3D object, define what is a 2D, define symmetry, define any types of questions, and then you can move on from that. And then I'll hand it over to one of my colleagues who will further explain another point. As I said, we will be analyzing Bloom's taxonomy, and that's what we'll be doing. Thank you.
Thanks to my colleague, I on the other hand will be focusing on the history of Bloom's taxonomy. In 1956, Bloom Benjamin, a renowned and educational psychologist, led a team of researchers to create a taxonomy to educational objectives. This taxonomy was created to classify learning objectives into 6 cognitive levels. Some of the original categories include knowledge, which is where you test the learner's ability to recall information. Comprehension, the learner's ability to understand information. Then application, is the learner able to apply the information that they already know. Then analysis, on analysis is whereby the learners can have a comprehension or something that they can analyze, break down into pieces that are more simpler. Then they go there and then synthesize information. Are they able to synthesize it and create new and understandable text or context? Then the last one is evaluation. Are the learners able to evaluate and better use the information which they have been taught in a well and structured way? I'll be passing over to my next colleague.
The original Bloom's taxonomy was created by Benjamin Bloom in 1956. It was designed to classify different cognitive levels and help teachers create better teaching strategies. Imagine a group of educators led by Benjamin in the 1950s, brainstorming and coming up with an idea on how to make learning more meaningful and structured. They came up with a pyramid of cognitive thinking, starting from memorizing, which is remembering, all the way to creating, which is creation of new ideas. When was the Bloom's taxonomy revised? The Bloom taxonomy was revised in 2001 by a team led by Edison, Warren Edison and David Carroll. They updated the taxonomy to be more action orientated. They tweaked words like evaluation to evaluate, and they swapped the first two levels and made create the highest thinking skill. Why does this taxonomy matter? It helps teachers design better lessons and engrave deeper thinking in learners.
In continuation, as my colleague has said, who developed Bloom Taxonomy? Bloom Taxonomy was created in 1956 by Benjamin Bloom and his colleague, aids educators in understanding learning stages. The key changes include transforming category names from noun to action-oriented verb, which is remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create to clarify learners' expectations. What were the aim, or what was the purpose of Bloom Taxonomy? The purpose of Bloom Taxonomy was to assist educators in creating more effective lessons, evaluation, and learning objectives. It motivates students to go beyond mainly recall facts and engage students in critical thinking, generating new concepts, and analyzing data.
Greetings to everyone. On today's presentation, I'll be focusing on is Bloom's taxonomy a theory and how can Bloom's taxonomy use in assessment. According to my research, Bloom's taxonomy is not a theory, rather a framework that breaks down learning objectives into level of complexity, from basic knowledge to high order thinking. It helps teachers to plan learning and do assessment. Also, again, Bloom's taxonomy is not a theory because of one characteristic of a theory. It emphasizes how learning occurs. On the other hand, Bloom's taxonomy doesn't. How can Bloom's taxonomy be used in assessment? Teachers can use Bloom's taxonomy to create questions and measure tasks on different types of understanding. Teachers can use Bloom's taxonomy to design questions, access skills, feedback, and spot improvement. Here are the examples on how Bloom's taxonomy can be used in assessment. For remembering, the example is how many sides does a hexagon have? For understanding, use your own way to explain what is an angle. For applying, draw an angle and label it. For analyzing, look at the following numbers and
the audience, I'll be doing the topic of how a teacher can use Bloom's taxonomy in the classroom. Teachers can use Bloom's taxonomy to create lessons, activities, and assessment that help students grow their thinking and problem-solving skills. The framework breaks learning into 6 levels: understanding, remembering, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. The first one is remembering. Teachers can start by helping students recall key ideas and facts. For instance, in a history class, the teacher can ask simple questions like who was Nelson Mandela or when did South Africa gain democracy, to ensure students know the essentials. To enforce learning, the teacher could organize a fun quiz or use flashcards for quick reviews. And then the second one, understanding. At this stage, students show they understand concepts by explaining them in their own words. During a science lesson, on ecosystems, the teacher might ask students to describe the roles of producers, consumers, and decomposers in the food chains. Students could create simple flowcharts or illustrations to show how energy moves through an ecosystem. And then the third one, applying. Teachers can guide students to apply their knowledge in everyday situations. A math teacher could ask students to calculate discounts during pretend shopping activity to practice percentage. Students can work in groups to tackle real-world problems like budgeting for a school trip based on a set budget. And then the fourth one, analyzing. This step involves helping students examine patterns or relationships. In an English class, the teacher might ask, what themes do you see in Cry, the beloved country? How do the characters' choices reflect those themes? Students could use tools like Venn diagrams to compare characters or events in a story. And then the fifth one, evaluating. Students are encouraged to think critically and form opinions based on evidence. In a life orientation class, the teacher could ask students, do you think social media benefits or harms teenagers? Give examples to support your opinion. Students might debate or discuss their views with classmates, using facts to back up their arguments. And then the sixth point, creating. At the highest level, students could use their creativity to produce original ideas or projects. Example, in an art class, students might design posters to raise awareness about an issue like climate change. In geography, students could build models of environmental friendly cities, incorporating concepts like renewable energy and urban design. By following Bloom's taxonomy, teachers can help students move from remembering basic information to creating something entirely new. Thank you.
I'll be focusing on the limitations of Bloom's taxonomy. Firstly, the Bloom's taxonomy is overly hierarchical, as it focuses more on a rigid progression from high order thinking to low order thinking, which in most cases learning is not very linear, as learners can focus more on high order thinking without firstly mastering the low order levels. And secondly, it does not account for creativity, as the old model focused more on a structured knowledge acquisition rather than fostering for creative thinking. And then thirdly, it has limited application to non-cognitive domains and has a simplistic view of learning. The taxonomy also lacks a consideration for context, as it does not take account for factors like culture, personal experience, and also prior knowledge, which are essential for holistic education. In conclusion, Bloom's taxonomy provides a valuable framework for understanding cognitive learning, but it has limitations, and the effective application requires flexibility and considerations of diverse learning needs. By acknowledging the strengths and the weaknesses, a teacher can enhance teaching and learning experiences.